usually talk about internet horror on this channel, but today I wanna pull back. I want the camera to zoom out. I want to just kind of talk about horror as a concept. I'm getting so deep into it, I have the dictionary definition of horror that I will read off to the right here where my computer is. Horror is literally defined as, quote, an intense feeling of shock, fear, or disgust. But really, if we get into the granular of true horror, the beautiful thing about it is every single individual on this planet has their own definition of what horror is, and that is what excites me so much about this genre, why I love it so much and choose to dedicate so much of my time towards it. Some people watching this, their greatest fear in the whole world might be getting attacked by a shark at the beach, where someone else might just be afraid of the concept of death or the concept of the death of a loved one. Someone might be scared of spiders. Someone might be scared of being, chased through the woods by someone with an axe. There's so many different things. For me, medical things are my true horror, and you don't often see those necessarily in a horror film. So I think it's kind of cathartic to see different types of horror within movies and shows and books and stuff. Because sometimes it doesn't actually scare you, but you still get excited and enjoy the experience. To me, the most successful horror isn't something shocking and gory and crazy. It's a feeling that you can't shake. This feeling permeates through the entire runtime of, if you ask me, the film of the summer, Osgood Perkins' Longlegs. Hello, if you aren't familiar, my name is glitchwitch.jpg. I typically make videos about internet horror, like creepypasta, analog horror, digital horror, ARGs, survival horror sometimes, but that usually just means Silent Hill. But speaking of ARGs, I tried to make a video about Longlegs, about probably by the time this comes out, a week or two ago. It was about the ARG component of the film, because that's internet horror, baby. It was right up my alley, and I really enjoyed it. Had a great time making it. It made the experience of going to see the film much richer, but YouTube deems it inappropriate for YouTube because it's pretty graphic, as the film is. I'm not going to get into any of the graphic stuff about the film at all today. I'm more just going to use it as a framework for this idea of dread-based horror, and just kind of talk about what I liked about the movie without going into the details. There is going to be a spoiler second half, but a non-spoiler first half. I'll let you know when the spoilers are coming if you haven't seen the film yet. But if you would like to watch that and learn more about the backstory of the murders described in Longlegs, check out a link to my Patreon in my description. I have the entire Longlegs ARG for free on my Patreon. It's not, you don't have to join, you don't have to pay anything, it's just up there. It was just a place I could host it without any restrictions. So please feel free. As of right now, I don't have any paid Patreon options. I do have a YouTube membership option if you feel like throwing some cash roll in my way. There are perks and benefits and stuff. I'll get to my members at the end of this. But yeah, if you are as Longlegs pilled as me, maybe check that out. I did work pretty hard on it, and I am pretty proud of it. So, but Longlegs, it's my whole life now. I love it. So I had to make a video just about why this movie worked so well, and how I think that this particular brand of horror is so powerful, and it just gets me going. And I think that internet horror uses the same tactics that Longlegs does a lot. Mostly in internet horror, I think it's because of limited resources, whereas Longlegs, it's more of a concerted choice on Osgood Perkins' part. But it's interesting. It's my favorite type of horror. You'll notice, yes, I have a Migration-branded drink cup that I did buy at an AMC theaters. Gorgeous girls have hot flashes before they turn 30. I am gorgeous girls. And if I don't drink water, we're recording this, I will pass out. So, you're getting the Migration cup today. Sorry to break the Catholic mystique I have going on. Do you want to talk about Longlegs? Let's talk about Longlegs. So, if you are not aware, Longlegs is a 2024 horror film directed by Osgood Perkins, who is the son of horror icon Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates himself. And it stars Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe, and it follows a FBI agent who is tracking down an elusive serial killer called Longlegs. He has been at large for like 3 decades at this point. It's a huge mystery. People do not understand how the crimes are occurring because there is no evidence that he was there, and it looks like the families inflicted the crimes upon themselves. YouTube, please let me say that at least. That was my big issue on the other video, was describing what happened to the families. The reason that they're linking it to this mysterious killer named Longlegs is because at every crime scene, he leaves a letter with a coded message signed Longlegs. So it's a big mystery. And the FBI agent is played by Miss Micah Monroe, a Scream Queen legend in her own right. She started It Follows, The Guest, The Watcher. Love her. Been loving her since way back when. I hope she keeps popping the heck off.
Took a shit in the mother toilet, refused to flush.
The just incredible Nicolas Cage plays the titular Longlegs. We will get in depth on Nicolas Cage's performance in the spoiler section, because a thing that's been so great about this movie is the marketing freaked it. It's why the movie, I just read a statistic, I'm recording this Sunday after the movie came out. It made like $23 million or something this weekend, which is crazy. That's like one of the highest grossing independent horror film first weekend grosses ever. Like, to put it into perspective, A24's highest grossing opening weekend horror film was Hereditary back in 2017. 2018, and that made like 13.5 million. This made 23 million. That's crazy, because Hereditary, I mean, that's a big player. I like Longlegs better, but it's really proving that Neon is responsible for the marketing. They know how to do it. This has been a good year for them, because they also put out Immaculate, this Sydney Sweeney Nun movie. I loved that too. The marketing specifically avoided showing Nicolas Cage as Longlegs, and I think that was really smart, because it was effective when you finally did see him. So if you have not seen this film yet, don't look up anything about it. Click off the video, frankly. I'm going to keep being spoiler free. I will tell you when I'm not going to, but just go see it. It's so good. So because the marketing was so crazy and everywhere and people were really into it, a lot of people have flooded the theaters to see it. Like I said, it made damn $23 million. It's crazy for a horror film like this. And I've noticed that people love it. Like, there's a huge positive reaction. There are people calling it the horror film of the decade and things like that. But I've also noticed that there are people that are walking out disappointed because some people think that the marketing didn't showcase it correctly. Some people are saying it's overhyped, and that I can't really argue with, because I think there's a danger whenever a movie is labeled the scariest movie of the decade. That's a bit much. I don't think that a critic should ever say that of a movie, because you're creating this false narrative in people's heads. Because what's, like I said earlier in the intro to this video, what's scary to me is not scary to you. Like, for example, when Skinamarink, the Kyle Edward Ball horror film from last year came out, when that was like doing the rounds, when it got like bootlegged and was going on the internet, it got this weird cult following, and lots of people started saying, it's the scariest movie ever made. And that was an instance where it actually was the scariest movie ever made to me. But to everyone else sitting in my theater besides my husband, it was not when I saw it. And that's okay. It just means that that type of horror isn't effective for those people. But when you label something as vaguely as the scariest movie of the decade, you're creating a false narrative that will never please everyone. So I don't like when that's used. Do I think Longlegs is the scariest movie of the decade? I don't know. It freaked me out. I can't stop thinking about it. It got under my skin. Do I probably think that if I sit there and statistically think of my heart rate, Skinamarink is probably a scarier movie to me. But I think that Longlegs is a more evil movie. There's just so many variable factors. So I kind of am making this video simply to say, just because you're hearing people say, oh, well, it wasn't that scary. It wasn't that scary. Why are people saying it's scary? That doesn't mean you shouldn't go see it. You have to tell for yourself. And to anyone that watched it and is maybe like checking out people's videos to see like why the hell do people like it, you're not wrong for not liking it. You're not wrong for not finding it scary, because that is up to you. But you shouldn't tell me that I'm wrong for thinking it's scary. You know what I mean? We can respect each other here. I know that's hard on the internet, but we can do it. Let me take a swing from the duck here. But I think for the people that aren't gelling with this, I think that their particular brand of horror is probably more visceral, disturbing, violent, gory, bloodbath type thing. Like, I've seen a lot of people on like Twitter and stuff respond to tweets saying Longlegs is the scariest film of the decade, responding with, oh my god, no, like Barbarian's the scariest film of the decade. That kind of tells me everything I need to know about that person's type of horror. Barbarian came out, it's either last year or 2 years ago now, and I love that movie. Absolutely a wild ride, freaky. It is not the scariest movie by any means to me, because that type of horror isn't what gets under my skin, but I love it and I think it's a brilliant film. So that, it's just such a different type of horror. That's a much more in-your-face, crazy thrill ride horror that's like more shocking than something like Longlegs is, and I do think there is fault to be had, not even with the marketing, but more with critics coming out and calling Longlegs shocking and disturbing, and I do think it is all those things, but it's a lot slower, and I think it's more like skin-crawling, a persistent feeling of dread. And when I get into the spoiler section, I'll kind of explain parts that I thought really hit that on the head. There's no right or wrong way to be scared, but as someone who, I am very affected by the type of horror presented in Longlegs. For me, tension, like unrelenting, unbroken tension, it's almost like horror edging, forgive me for describing it that way, gets me more than anything. And that's why movies like Skinamarink just work me up severely. That's why a lot of analog horror is so effective to me. And I love horror where you get like a jump scare or like the money shot image, and you're kind of forced to live with it. You have to sit with it and stare at it and confront it. And I think in a lot of more like traditional jump scare cinema, you're jump scared and then you don't see the scary image. And I think sometimes the confrontation of that image is what is so effective. And I think that's why, you know, we joke on this channel, if you're just clicking on this, you've never heard of me, you don't know who I am, and you're not familiar with internet horror, there is a trend within specifically analog horror that I call the analog horror scary face, or the analog horror spooky face, where the jump scare of analog horror tends to be one shocking image of a creepy face. It's like our bread and butter on this side of the internet. And I'm very affected by that because often you have to sit and stare at it, and the longer you stare at it, the more it gets under your skin. And I think that Longlegs has several things that act as its very own analog horror scary face. So let's get into it. I am going to get into the spoiler section of this video. I'm not going to give a run-by-run plot breakdown, but I'm going to list specific things and get a little bit more into Longlegs as a character, because I think he is a reason that this movie is scary in the way that it's scary. But you know, before I get into the spoiler thing, I feel kind of underdressed for this. Like, I feel, if you've watched my channel before, I'm usually wearing a lot more makeup than this, so I'm just like, I think I'm gonna go put a little bit more makeup on. I don't feel like done up enough. I don't think it's very off. So just give me like Give me a second. I mean, it'll be like that because I'm gonna edit it, but I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna introduce myself up a little bit. I think it's only fair to, you know, glam up a little bit for talking about what's probably my favorite movie of the year. So I'll be right back. This is your last warning. If you haven't seen this movie, please click off. Sorry, my Christmas is falling off. Please click off. Please, for my sake, click off, because I put more makeup on. Rest in peace, Longlegs. You would have loved Migration. Oh, wait. I have one other thing. We don't need her. We do need her. And yes, I just have this on my bookshelf. Of course I do. Have you been paying attention? It's a good thumbnail. Okay. So, why is Longlegs scary? I don't know if any of you are going to be able to take a word I have to say seriously, but boy, howdy am I going to try. The thing is I expected that this movie would freak me out. But, you know, I went in with a lot of people being like, it's like Silence of the Lambs. It's like Seven. I don't think it's like those movies. I think it's its own thing. Just because there is FBI agents and a female FBI agent does not mean it's like Silence of the Lambs. Frankly, if you were to compare this movie to a Hannibal Lecter story, I would say it's most like NBC's Hannibal. Because I feel that there's more of that, like, in that. But my point is, ignore the comparisons. I think we should ignore the comparisons. Because if you walk into this movie and expect Silence of the Lambs, you're not going to get it, because Longlegs is not Hannibal Lecter. He's like Buffalo Bill on crack cocaine. This movie sets itself up to be scary. The opening sequence of this film, where we see who we find out ends up being Agent Lee Harker. As a child, walking outside in the snow, she sees a car, goes back, and she meets the titular Longlegs. And we are Lee. We are in Lee's point of view. And, you know, Longlegs is just, like, face down. And creepy enough, right? And I, going into this, did not expect to see his face in the first 2 minutes, especially with the way that the marketing was done. I assumed it would take a lot longer to be able to see the monster, right? Because that's essentially what Longlegs is. He's the monster of this film. And then they just... My husband described it really well. It's like a hypnotist hypnotizing you. He bends down, and you kind of see his face enough to go... That's what I did, at least. I went... And, again, I am affected by a scary face. It is one of those the uncanny valley faces. Flip my shit. It just works for me. Other people may laugh at a spooky face, but for me, I can't explain why. I think it's because uncanny valley stuff. Oh my god, my face itches. I'm sorry. Oh. I try to cover my brows. My brows are too dark, and I don't have a glue stick. I will not be putting any drag kings out of business anytime soon, that's for sure. And it just hooks you. The tone and the tension of the entire film is set in that opening sequence. And because of that, I think it's one of the most successful opening sequences in a horror film ever. And nothing even happens. It's just a guy talking to a little girl. Like, the jump scare is a guy bending. That's crazy. You know what I mean? And I can see why people who want, spoiler alert for Barbarian here, you know, sucking on demon lady titty jump scares are maybe not affected by weird guy bending. I understand that. Me, got my shit rocked by weird guy. bending. So that to me, I could stop the video here. That sets up the entire vibe. I feel like if that sequence didn't work for you, the movie's probably not going to work for you. But I think that this continues throughout. We're not given the full picture of really anything. In the beginning, when we first meet Agent Lee Harker, played by Micah Monroe, she is sent on a mission, or whatever you call them, job, case, by, I don't know anything about the government or the law enforcement, with a male partner, and we don't know who it's for, we don't know why they're doing it, what this person did, we don't know anything about them. When I saw the movie originally, I thought they were already looking for Longlegs simply because I knew that the movie was about searching for a serial killer named Longlegs. But no, nothing to do. It literally just exists to set up the fact that Lee's low-key a psychic baddie. We never hear anything else about that entire case, which I think is really interesting, but shows the fact that it just keeps, like, sprinkling little tidbits. It never gives you the full picture until the end. It really does give you the full picture. This continues. When they talk about the cases, like the actual Longlegs case, we don't get a lot of specifics about what happened. You hear little snippets of each family, which I went in knowing, like, deep, intense backstories about every single victim because of the ARG website tie-in. Link in bio, link in bio. And that was made a very rich experience for me, I will say. But, like, I saw it with my husband and my best friend, and, like, they did not have a rich experience because of it, you know what I'm saying? You don't need all those details for it to be effective. And I think the movie does a good job as it continues to give a little more to the point where, you know, you start to get into the camera family murders with Carrie, and you get more of the full scope of what's happening there. So I think it does a really good job. And I think that any sort of, you know, investigation procedural movie needs to do that. I think if you give too much in the beginning, you just kind of give up, and what's the point? Honestly, the vibe of this, while a lot of people are comparing it to Silence of the Lambs, if I was to compare it to another, like, crime procedural story, I would compare it more to, like, True Detective Season 1. Because they both share that weird supernatural element. You can't really ever quite pin down what the hell is going on in True Detective. I would say maybe True Detective Season 1 doesn't give enough. Depends on who you are. I think it's a perfect season of television. That, I think, is the best comparison, because that is another story that focuses so heavily on the dread. And horror that's fueled by dread is a lot more sinister and unexpected than, like, in-your-face gore crazy horror. And I'm not knocking in-your-face gore crazy horror. I had my phases, baby. I love Salo. I love Cannibal Holocaust. I love A Serbian Film. Genuinely, I like all of those movies. But they don't scare me the way that something like Longlegs does, or even True Detective's not even a horror show, but it freaks me the hell out. It makes me uncomfortable. It's because the dread never goes away. Like, from beginning to end of Longlegs, when they set you up with that opening sequence, it has you, and it still has me. Like, I saw the movie twice, so I'm doing this to myself, but, like, I can't shake the heebie-jeebie of it all, you know what I mean? Like, it, ugh. I think it also, like, comes from subverting the expected. Like, there are a lot of beats in this movie, or plot points or whatever, that are, like, textbook horror movie. You know, serial killer, Satan, scary mom, all of those things we see throughout horror. And especially, I feel like Satanism's kind of, like, way overplayed. If you watch my ARG video that I made before I saw Longlegs, over and over I was like, it's not just going to be a Satan thing. It's not just going to be a Satan thing. It's just a Satan thing, and honestly, I'm happy about it. The leanest, cleanest form of movie Satanism I've seen in a long time. It felt refreshing in a weird way. And I think the entire idea of this evil, malevolent serial killer that everybody's trying to figure out, who is he, how is he doing this, the fact that he never lifted a finger himself and didn't harm a single person on his own, turns him into this weird figure. And that's where I'll just get into it. I'll get into, like, Longlegs, the character, because, yeah, I would say a good 80% of the weird feelings people have about this movie come from Nicolas Cage in this performance. So, Longlegs is this weird, gangly, almost androgynous, like, glam rock guy. Like I said, he is way more Buffalo Bill than he is Hannibal Lecter. He is clearly a little off his rocker, but he is a disciple of Mr. Downstairs, Satan himself. And I love that we don't know why, we don't know how did he get involved in Satan? Why is he doing this? It doesn't matter, frankly, and I live for that. I think that we try, in modern horror especially, to over-explain. It doesn't need to be explained. I don't need to know. Look at him. Of course he worships Satan. Like, are you kidding me? That's like the least shocking thing ever. Because he is not the one killing these people, it turns him into a very strange character. Like, he is very uncomfortable. Obviously, visually, he's very uncomfortable to look at. And I've seen a lot of people making jokes saying he looks like Shay St. John. You know, he looks like John Travolta in Hairspray, things like that. Which, funny, I get it. And he does look a little crazy, but and almost silly out of context. But in context, when you're locked into that movie, it's terrifying. And a lot of it is because of his mannerisms. He just bursts into song. I thought several of the lines that he was singing must have been actually from songs. Several of them weren't. He just did that. And nobody else could have played this character. It really... Only Nicolas Cage could have done this, because he does this shit without even being told to do it. This was made for him. And I think a lot of people, they underestimate him, or he's become the butt of the joke, or it's just people are like, oh, he's cool now, he's a dandy. And it's like, no, he won an Academy Award in the 90s. He's been that bitch. He's been that diva. And speaking of diva, I'm going to say it. I'm going to go here on YouTube.com, and I'm going to say what so many of you are probably afraid of saying. Longlegs, the character, is mother. And hear me out. Because I don't want to be one of those, like, oh my god, like, I love the serial killer people. The fact that he didn't actually single-handedly kill anyone, and that he was not weird in a way that I hoped he wasn't going to be weird, if you're catching my drift, it allows me to stand, and I have to say I must stand. I think Longlegs is one of the funniest, scariest, weirdest horror villains probably to come out of my entire lifetime. Like, straight up. And I love it. I love to be part of an icon being born. And what a weird icon. It's just androgynous, weird Nicolas Cage. Love that. Love that. And that's part of the reason why I like this movie. As scary as it is, it's funny as hell sometimes. The scene when Lee is in Miss Ruby's bedroom. It was funny as hell when Miss Ruby's like, will you come to my birthday party? And she's just like, I'll be there. Funny as hell. Longlegs screaming in his car. Terrifying. But I giggle. Kiernan Shipka. That entire sequence. Incredible. But the line, you dirtsy, flirty old angel bitch? Come on. Come on. Love. I love a movie that is deeply, deeply unsettling and disturbing, but that I can still, like, low-key make fun of in a way that, like, it's asking me to make fun of it. That's, like, some of my favorite type of media. Back to Longlegs. I think the fact that we don't know a damn thing about him, and we just have to roll with it, makes him scary. I don't want a backstory. I don't want to know how he learned how to make dolls. Ooh, he's really good at it. We stand an artisan king, I guess. But just the vagueness, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You know, the fact that the movie doesn't just shove stuff in your face, a full explanation, makes it very, very unsettling. It makes you not want to look away, because you do want to learn more, but I personally was not dissatisfied that we didn't find anything out. Now, I do think that another thing that makes this movie so effective and scary for me personally is Osgood Perkins, despite being a man, is really good at feminine-driven horror. His other film, Blackcoat's Daughter, has a lot of similar themes to Longlegs, but instead of Satan being the villain, he's almost this sort of liberator for the main female character, and almost representative of how women are punished for being innately female. And I think that there are a lot of feminist things hidden within Longlegs, and I think that's why I personally found it so effective, because I am a woman. Don't let the Nicolas Cage drag confuse you. I am a woman. But clearly, motherhood is a huge, huge element of this film, right? One of the main characters is Lee Harker's mother, played by Alicia Witt, and both Osgood Perkins and Nicolas Cage say that they made this movie about their mothers. Nicolas Cage said the look was informed by his mom. She used to put cold cream on her face, and it made her face white, and she would be like, ah, and scare the hell out of him. And he also said that the mannerisms and the voice he derived from his mother. What an homage to dear old mommy. And then Osgood Perkins also said that his mother inspired this film. And I think that it's a really interesting read on motherhood and, you know, the lengths at which mothers will go to protect their child. And sometimes they can go too far. It's you know, almost a sheltering that harms not only their child, but the world around them. You know, her mother is so deeply desperate to protect Lee that she becomes so deluded enough that by the end, she's ready to kill her child. She's lost the plot. She's so deluded by her, like, self-sacrificing nature that she's ready to, you know, destroy the very thing that made her this way in the first place. And, you know, I think that that's a problem that you see with a lot of toxic mothers. I am, you know, totally speaking out of turn here. I do not have a relationship like that with my mother. My mother and I get along well. So please, if you have an uneasy relationship with your mother and I am talking out my ass, tell me. Okay? But I think, you know, we all know women who make their children feel bad for even being born. I did all this for you. I did all that for you. Oh my God, I ruined my life for you. I didn't get to have my dreams because of you. And in a weird way, even though it's not, you know, blatantly said, that's kind of what, you know, Lee's mom is doing for her. Like, she clearly started all of this just trying to protect her daughter, but she bought into it. By the end, she is fully locked and loaded. She loves Satan. She is ready to protect him and serve him and whatever. So I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting because it shows the lengths which mothers will go to. It shows, you know, the fact that sometimes children don't ask for any of that. Lee didn't get a chance to have a say in that. I'm not saying she should have died or wish she was killed or whatever, but it's just a really interesting look at the very unique relationship of mothers and daughters, and in a not so traditional way. You know, you have your ladybirds and you have your hereditaries and stuff like that, but I think this is a lot, it's different. It's definitely not as overt. So I definitely think Osgood Perkins has a pulse on feminine horror. I just really love, because at the end of the day, all the thing, like, Satan isn't the thing that makes this movie scary. Satan is a vehicle for the things to happen. The thing that's scary is how easily people can be manipulated, whether it's Longlegs being manipulated by Satan, Lee's mom being manipulated by Longlegs, or the families being manipulated by the dolls, by Satan, to get them, you know, to turn on their families and harm the ones they love the most. And I think that showing Agent Carter turn on his family at the end and watching it happen and seeing that, like, they know what's going on, they know what's about to happen, he doesn't want to do it, she doesn't want him to do it, but they literally cannot help it. It's terrifying and so upsetting. And to pull back and think that exact scenario happened to every single one of these families. Like, it's just, ugh. It's not a movie that makes you go, ah. It's a movie that makes you go, ugh. And that's my favorite kind of horror. It makes me uncomfortable. It stays with me. And, man, also, I love a creepy doll. And I'm not talking about Annabelle or shit like that. I'm talking about, you give me a weird human-sized doll, oh, that's so upsetting to me. That entire scene with the creepy mortuary guy who broke open the doll and was talking about how well-made the doll was. I get why your wife divorced you, King. That was weird. All of that was weird. But I love it. I love it. It feels very old school horror in that the answer is a magical metal ball that Satan puts part of himself into, and this weird androgynous glam rocker man puts the evil silver ball into his expertly crafted dolls and, you know, delivers them. Also love a good subversion of Christianity. Send the nun in to deliver the doll, and they take the doll. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a doll just that looked just like you showing up on your 9th birthday from the church? Hate that. I hated dolls growing up. Self-preservation on my part. Clearly. Honestly, I just want to talk about why I like this movie so much. It's scary, it's ooky, it's spooky, it's a little campy, but I just haven't seen a movie like this in a long time. I literally went and watched it again 24 hours later. And I will probably see it again. It's got its little claws on me. And I think that's the best, like, satanic or occult media, is when it sticks with you. Because I think that's the idea, right? Like, it's supposed to get under your skin and not leave you. Like, I've seen a lot of people be like, I need to go get baptized again, or I need to go to church. And I get it. Like, I do. It's, ooh, you know? That's the only word I can use to describe it, is ooh. So, really, I just want to talk about why I love this movie so much, but kind of through the guise of, like, there's different types of horror. I get why this type of horror movie doesn't work for everybody, but it sure works for me, and clearly a lot of other people. So, let me know in the comments below. Do you like dread, tension, slow burn type horror like this, or are you more of a barbarian diva? Please, if you don't mind and are interested in Longlegs, on an even deeper dive, check out my ARG video, my Patreon below. I would appreciate it, just because no one got to see it. And it provides a lot of cool backstory and just shows off how unique the marketing plan really was for this film, and how, you know, clearly this marketing plan was successful. The movie's doing gangbusters. As always, I would like to thank my YouTube members. We have the Creepypasta OCs here, and then we have in Survival Horror Emo, E-Rob, Bodini, and our newest edition, So-Called Punk. And then in Animal Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer. So thank you all so much for supporting me, and thank you all for watching. Go see Longlegs in the theaters if you haven't already. Go see it again. We gotta fill those seats so that we keep getting cool original horror like this. I mean, it's already been happening. The past few years post-pandemic, you know, it's just been proven that horror is dominating the box office. This year's been an amazing year for horror. We've had this, we've had Immaculate, we've had The First Omen, which was amazing, and there's a lot more coming out. We have Smile 2 coming out. I love Smile. I don't know if y'all are Smile fans or not. I love that movie. So I'm excited for that. Cuckoo with Hunter Schafer. Like, and Nosferatu. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is coming out at Christmas, so it's going to be a good year for horror. But yeah, please keep supporting original horror in cinemas. I highly recommend, if you have an AMC near you, the AMC A-List membership. I'm not sponsored. I'm just genuinely, I love it so much. I bought this cup at AMC. I love the AMC A-List membership because you can see like 3 movies a week for like under $25 where I live. I think it's different in each state. But if you see like 2 movies a month, it pays for itself. So I highly recommend it because it leads me to see stuff that I wouldn't maybe normally see, or it lets me see things I really like Longlegs, over and over again. Like, I'm probably going to go see Longlegs again next weekend because clearly I like it if I'm standing before you all like this. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my little angels. I didn't like saying that. That was weird.